Now let's create a sample project in Visual Basic and see some of the code editor enhancements we have there. Launch Visual Studio. As you remember, we changed our environment settings to immediately pop up the new project dialog box. Let's go ahead and choose a Visual Basic project. Let's choose a Windows Form application. Select OK. For the most part, the code editor enhancements to Visual Basic are quite similar to C#. There are a few nuances, and we'll be sure to point them out in this section. First, let's examine the Code Snippet Manager. Double-click on the form. This will launch you into the code behind for the form. Right-click, select Insert Snippet. As you can see, the categories for Visual Basic are quite different than the ones you saw in C#. The Visual Basic Snippet Manager is a bit more robust coming out of the box. So instead of just seeing the language, C#, Office, and the 4 options you had with C#, we see a rich array of code snippets. Let's examine some of these. Similar to C#, we do have code patterns. So using the code snippets here, we can also create a try-catch block as we did in C#. As you can see, the behavior is quite similar. Let's go ahead and add another snippet. Delete the existing one and select Insert Snippet. We can also work with other properties such as the Windows system. In this case, we can manage our event logs, and we can write directly to the My Application event log. The My object is a shortcut that enables you to work directly with application settings without having to drill down deep into namespaces. The snippet editor is one way to understand the objects that are available in the My namespace. This is unique to Visual Basic. Another way we'll be working with shortly. Let's experiment with another snippet. Right-click, select Insert Snippet. Let's take a look at the fundamentals. A lot of these fundamentals are specific to Visual Basic. For example, calculating the monthly payment on the loan. This snippet not only gives you variables, but also gives you the calculation that you can use to plug in numbers. And again, by hovering your mouse over the green highlight, you can see the tooltip that allows you to understand what you need to replace. So in this case, the 1,000 sample data represents the loan amount. 36 represents the number of monthly payments. And 05 represents the annual interest rate. Let's delete this snippet and continue on. Visual Basic also provides automatic code completion. Let's scroll down outside of the sub. One way to add a property would be to right-click and say Insert Snippet. Another way would be just to start typing. As you can see, IntelliSense is also again smart enough to know what kind of scope we're using. In this case, I only see items that I can assign to a public scope. One of these will be property. I'll select property and create a property called food. Right now, at this moment, you see that IntelliSense only gives me the ability to choose from one single item, as. IntelliSense understands that I've already typed in the name of a property, and now all I need to do is define the data type. The data type for this will be string. At this moment, I haven't yet created my get and my set for my property. Now watch what happens when I press enter. Automatically, the get and set are set for me, along with the value attribute that is passed inside my set by val. Now all I need to do is configure the food property appropriately. For my get, I'll need to go ahead and retrieve a member variable. Let's set that. Go outside the public property, type in private m_strfood as string. Copy this into the clipboard, and for the get, select return and return your member variable. Likewise, we'll go ahead and need to set this. And instead of using value, let's use something more intuitive. Let's go ahead and say food name. And to set this, we'll set food name equal to our member variable. And now you see the error list no longer shows us any warnings. We now have an appropriately set public property. Also notice on the left-hand side the visualizer is now yellow, indicating any changes that I've made but not yet persisted to disk. If I select Save at this point, all the options will turn green. What happens if later I manipulate this property in a way that the compiler may not agree with? For example, let's go ahead and delete the set. This means I have no way for setting the value of food. Select Set and select Delete. Immediately, the background compiler picks up that I've done an action that's not necessarily a best practice. In this case, I see a blue squiggly underneath the food property. If I highlight over this, it says property without a read-only or write-only specifier must have both a get and set. In this case, I haven't declared this to be read-only, yet I'm not providing a way to write to this property. Without a set, there's no way to change the value for my food property. Notice I also see this in my error list, where I can manage a list of any errors, warnings, or messages that might incur with my background compiler. By highlighting over the food property, I see a new feature introduced in Visual Studio 2005. This is the Error Corrections Options Editor, which serves as a smart task that I can drop down by clicking on the arrow to see any suggestions that I may have for this particular type of error. So in this case, it's indicating that the property does not have a read-only or write-only specifier. And because of this, I have two options. One, I can insert the missing set. Visual Studio will show me in red this code suggestion that it has for replacing that set, or I can insert the read-only specifier. And again, Visual Studio will enable me to preview the changes before they're made to my code. By clicking on the fix name, whether it's missing set or read-only specifier, Visual Studio will apply that fix and change my code. Let's select the Insert Read-Only specifier. And as you can see, the squiggly lines are now gone, and now I have a read-only property called food that has only one get and not a set. Let's call this property from another function, such as the form load. We'll create a private variable. As I created that variable, the background compiler again indicates a green squiggly. This is a warning, not an error. This is letting me know that I've created a variable, but I haven't yet used it. If I go ahead and use this, by setting this to be my property, food, I'll notice that the green squiggle now goes away. Just like we saw in C#, refactoring is also supported in Visual Basic. If I right-click on the name food and say rename, I can rename my variable. Notice the options look a little bit different in Visual Basic than they did in C#. In C# you saw a refactor with a lot more choices, whereas in Visual Basic you're directly prompted to rename. Let's go ahead and rename this and select OK. And notice my string food does not get renamed. Only places where I'm calling the property or setting the property's signature are actually modified. Another productivity enhancement in Visual Basic is the completion of fully qualified namespaces. For example, let's go ahead and create another private member variable. Type in private, m_, and in this case we'll just create a simple thread. We type in thread, and notice the word thread is not listed in IntelliSense. What happens if I just go ahead and hit enter anyway, knowing that this is the object I want to use? Autocomplete will automatically try to populate it with the most intelligent choice. By deleting this and selecting thread, I'll still see a blue squiggly. It's letting me know that thread is not defined. However, the auto-fix options provide me with more information. It indicates that it knows that the thread object does exist, it just doesn't exist in the context that I'm using it. The object thread is actually located in the system.threading namespace. So I have two options here. I can import system.threading and therefore be able to use my thread object directly, or I can qualify the name by threading.thread. If I'm going to be using the thread object quite frequently, I may want to avoid having to say threading.thread every time. This is very similar to the using statements that we showed you in C#. In this case, they're not called using, but they're called import. Let's go ahead and choose import system.threading. At the top of your declarations, it imports the system.threading. As we did in C# with using statements, the import statement allows me to use objects' names without using their fully qualified namespaces.